Hi everyone, welcome to Unmuted by Big Karma, the show where we go behind the scenes of all entertainment industries, talking about secret stores and how stuff is actually made. Today, my fantastic guest is Peter Vesterbacka. Many of you used to know him, me too. I met him as the Mighty Eagle. He already had a red hoodie back then with a little Angry Birds logo. No, he still has a red hoodie. How have you been, Peter? I think you're joining us from your cottage house in Finland. And I've seen the Instagram pictures. It looks nice.
Yeah, I'm here in Finland, actually, the finest Bay Area, as I like to call it. So yeah, I've been good, so of course traveling a bit less than usual because of the pandemic, but all good. And yeah, I think that it's been as usual, like every crisis, as they say, is an opportunity. So I think there's lots of opportunities, and we're only in the second year of the pandemic, so getting the hang of it.
All right, and I've seen the Instagram pictures. You seem to be having a nice time over there, and
yeah, it's not too bad.
You're traveling. We're gonna get into it. That's your intense traveling. We're gonna get into it in a minute. First of all, I remember vividly the first time I met you. I'm not sure if you will, because that was back then when you were intensely traveling for Rovio. It was my first time in Finland. It was minus 14 degrees in December, so such a cliche. Mm-hmm. The first thing you told me was, I tell people that they can walk on water. Yeah. And that was the first thing I heard in Finland. Can you elaborate about that? It was in 2013, to put things back in context.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like very kind of like central to what we made happen at Rovio. So if you look at Angry Birds, we made that the fastest growing consumer brand ever. So already in like 2012, so 2 years after Angry Birds came out, Angry Birds was in the top 10 of all licensed brands in entertainment. So you had 7 Disney brands, Mickey and Friends, and then of course Star Wars and Marvel that are now part of Disney as well, and then Toy Story and all of these. Then you had Hello Kitty, the 40 plus years old cat character by Sanrio Japan, and you had Peanuts, and then you had Angry Birds. So Angry Birds was there kind of like, we got there in 2 years, and okay, Mickey Mouse obviously since 1928, so been around for a while. But yeah, so then and we did some studies. So then 93% of the Chinese population knew the brand, 91% in India, and you could say that 9 out of 10 people on the planet knew and would say probably still knows the brand of Angry Birds. And then I always said that of course, I mean, it was easy for us because everybody knows that, Finnish people, best marketeers on the planet. So, like no sweat. But then when I was asked, about the success of Angry Birds, I always said that, besides being the best marketeers on the planet, everybody in the company, actually everybody in the country knows how to walk on water. And then I was like, always like, Peter, like, isn't that like impossible? And then I said that, okay, let me explain what I mean. So if you look at Rovio and Angry Birds, 12 people in the company when Angry Birds launched the 12th of December 2009. And then we grew the company to 850 people very quickly. So massive growth, meaning that most of the people were not there when kind of like the success happened and the brand kind of like really exploded kind of like to the global scene. And very early days of Angry Birds, I told everybody in the company and everybody in the world that, okay, we're going to go for 100 million downloads. And okay, now when you say that, okay, we're going to have 100 million downloads, it's still like, like a massive number and it's not easy. But basically back then, nobody had done that. Not even Tetris that had been around for 20 years back then. Okay, now it's 30 years. And not even Tetris had gotten to 100 million. And Tetris, of course, one of the kind of like all-time biggest games and all of that. So
and Angry Birds won the 99 cents. It was not free. Nowadays, we talk about 100 million downloads for free. Angry Birds had a price.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we always had to then that, okay, like, how many free, how many paid. Most of them were paid downloads because that was the kind of like model in the App Store back then. So it was like premium content. That's actually a good point. Now it's, everybody takes for granted that, okay, it's always like free and it's free to play. And of course, that's the dominant design now, but it wasn't back then. You couldn't even have like in-app purchases in the game. So, that's,
when Android came out, out, right? You had to have advertising.
But then the walking on water, so just to kind of like wrap that up. So basically then, the point is that then I was told that, Peter, you're crazy, 100 million, nobody has done that. It's impossible, just like walking on water. But then when you ask the new people at Rovio who weren't there when, the success kind of like happened, then they were asked that, okay, so what do you do at Rovio, the company? What do you do there? And then they would say that, oh, we make games, and then 100 million downloads happen. New game, 100 million, new game, 100 million. And of course, that didn't happen kind of like automatically. I mean, we had to do a bit of marketing and a bit of activity to make that. So we actually, like, for example, Angry Birds Space 2012, when we launched that, we launched it in space on the International Space Station together with NASA, first game ever to be launched in space. And we did a lot of those kind of things. We took over the Red Square in Moscow, not only once, but twice.
We're going to talk about that.
But anyway, so we had to do a bit. But anyway, we made it look easy because we learned how to do that. So when you ask the people, then, oh, what do you do? Then it's okay, we make games, and then 100 million downloads kind of like happens. And this is the same as with the walking on water. That walking on water, of course, first reaction, it's impossible, like the 100 million downloads. But then when you actually know how to do it, and you mentioned that you came here in December first time and it was minus 14 degrees centigrade, meaning that very easy to walk on water because it's frozen.
The sea was frozen. That was the first time I saw it, and that was so great. You said, here you can walk on water, the sea's frozen. And that's such a fantastic mindset because of course there is the bold, we can do the impossible, but it's not just that. It's also timing is everything. You have to be smart. You have to wait for your moment to walk on water. It's not magic. It's a trick.
I think that is actually a good point. That, I mean, it's the golden rule of venture capital that is like too early, too late. And I think that also applies to walking on water. That if you are doing it not in the winter, then probably you're not going to be
dangerous. But that was such a great speech. You also gave, because you really convinced me back then that part of the success of Rovio was, of course, the characters and some creative things, but also a mindset. You actually refer to the mindset of the Pori team, who had just won the hockey league that year, although they were a small team, and it was a mindset. Matt Wilson shared with me several stories of you. Do you remember the first time you went to a conference with him? The stack of card thing? Should I tell him so that you...
Go ahead.
I don't want you to sound arrogant. And so I'm going to say it for you because you have that Finnish Sisu humility going for you. But Matt Wilson, he said to me, when Peter joined, I felt a little bit threatened because I was in marketing and he was more experienced than me. And if they hired a new guy, it meant maybe I was not doing my job right. And then I went to a first conference with him. I don't know if it was South by Southwest or GDC or which one. We split ways. We went to speak to people. I spoke to a lot of people. Peter spoke to a lot of people. We met at the airport again. He asked me, so Matt, how many business cards did you get? And Matt took a little stack of business cards, he was quite proud of it. He said he's a pretty social guy. He thought it looked good. Then Peter took out of his pocket a stack of cards, 3 times bigger, so big that I cannot even show it on camera for those who view the video. And Matt was so impressed. And you told him, next time you go to a conference, make sure you told to everybody and that everybody is your friend. Go for the deep end of the pool. And I had never heard such a complete mentality that it's not just, oh, let's select meeting. It is, no, there's a conference. There are many people in it. Talk to all of them. That was, there are many stories of this like you. But one story I want the audience to hear, because I've heard it before and it hasn't been told enough, I think. It's the one you just touched upon. The Red Square, Angry Birds in Russia. I think this embodies so much who you were at the time and how much you were traveling as well, because there was please share all the detail. Please tell us this fantastic story. I'm going to sit next to the fireside chat and listen to you laugh.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing was that we were always looking for doing things differently, and I think that is also. I mean, if you look at the Red Hoodie. I mean, actually, I've always been wearing red, so also before like Rovio, and then red. Obviously the main character. If you look at Angry Birds and kind of like the iconic red bird. So then I actually went to a conference in Germany. Early days of Angry Birds, and then I was on a panel, and then I asked the people to take like a picture of me, sitting there, and then came back to Espoo to Rovio HQ, and then I showed that picture to everybody. Juhana Kotilainen was in our marketing, back then, and then immediately like everybody understood, because I explained that, hey, this is how you differentiate, this is how you stand out. And in that picture, you saw like 4 guys on a panel. 3 of them wearing, this kind of like business attire, dark suit and stuff like that, tie, and then 1 guy in a red hoodie. So, like, of course, you stand out. And I think that then after that, Juhana ordered like red Angry Birds hoodies for everybody, and that kind of became a bit of the company uniform. So every time, when a new person joined Rovio, you got your red Angry Birds hoodie, and then when you went somewhere, like the conference and all of that, and your story about Matt and me going to conferences, of course, then everybody came to you, because the Rovio people with the Angry Birds hoodie, it was very easy. Oh, you must work for Rovio, and then we should talk, and then so you didn't even.
We saw you from far away. We saw you from far away, man.
The Red Square, and there's actually like lots of like Russia stories, because I mean, big neighbor to the east for us. But one thing that we were always looking for, things that we could do that would have kind of like a global impact, but then kind of like doing these local activities, like, again, launching Angry Birds Space in space. And at the same time, we also took over the Space Needle in Seattle, because, Space Needle, great. So we put Red Bird on the Space Needle, and still if you Google like Space Needle, many of the images that will come up will feature the Space Needle with a big red bird hanging from the side. But anyway, yeah, so then Red Square obviously has, like that kind of connotation that it's like in Russia, and it's not like the easiest place to take over. And it took us actually a couple of years, and we had to do quite a bit to kind of like get there. And actually that's, like a long story in itself. But to shorten a bit, we actually then managed to take over the Red Square and brand it, and actually we were the main sponsor of this kind of like big celebration that they organize for the high school graduates in Russia. So every year the 6,000 best high school graduates get invited to the Kremlin, and there's a big event, and it's televised on national TV, and the best male and best female student, they get like a prize. Okay, when we were there, they got a huge Angry Birds plush toy, so like nice visibility on national TV and all of that. And then we also took over, we had a big concert. One thing that you can actually find if you Google Angry Birds Red Square, you'll see some of the things that we did there. But we actually organized like a big concert, and then preparing for that concert in the day, there are sound checks and everything. And then just told the people there that actually I could do my speech now. And then they started saying that, Peter, there's no mention about like any speech or anything like that. Then, okay, my Russian friends say, okay, like Angry Birds, they're sponsoring this, and, so it's okay. So then I managed to do my like victory speech in the Red Square. And I don't think that many people are like allowed to give talks in the Red Square. So that was like pretty cool. And also,
you passed through the KGB. You passed through the KGB.
But it was actually, and then we managed to make Russia one of the biggest markets for Angry Birds when it comes to licensing and everything. So also a bit of the kind of like attitude that everybody else was afraid of doing business in Russia because the crisis and everything. But we actually weren't afraid of doing that, and we also took like the Angry Birds soft drinks and made them #1 in Russia. So then
ahead of Coca-Cola. Angry
Yeah.
Birds drinks were better sold than Coca-Cola in Russia that year.
Yeah. So then Joe Tripodi was the CMO of Coke, actually then invited us to meet with him and his team in Vegas for one event. And then he was telling the guys there that these guys are kicking your ass in Europe. What are you going to do about it? Because, like Coke is not used to anybody beating them. Okay, we didn't, we beat them for like a couple of weeks time, but still, even that is like something that, Pepsi, for example,
shouldn't happen. It's the kind of things that shouldn't happen. It's like
cool.
a European team beating the Americans at basketball in the Olympics. It's not supposed to happen. Sometimes it does, but it shouldn't. You skipped a few details there. You said
one thing
how it happened is a story in and of itself, and I think it's an interesting one.
But one thing that I also, got started like the Red Hoodie thing and all of that. So, also got invited then to this St. Petersburg Economic Forum, and there's also like a big story on like how I actually got there with various.
Can you say it? Can you say it? The plane story, the airport story.
Yeah. I got invited. Actually, we were talking to Yuri Milner and the team at DST. So they're big investor in, or one of the first investors in Facebook and Zynga and many of these companies. And we were meeting with the team in London. And then I was, after the meeting, I was on my way to Heathrow. So we are in London. And then I get a call from the DST guys that, hey, Peter, there's like next Friday, there is this St. Petersburg Economic Forum, and would be great if you could be on the panel there. They've invited like Daniel Ek and Yuri Milner himself was on that. And then I think the CEO of Mail.ru, the company that Yuri founded. Then
Daniel Ek, the founder of Spotify.
Mary Meeker was there, a bunch of like, people and like super kind of like influential like panel and all that. But then I immediately told them that, hey, that I'm going to be traveling. I think that, early in the week I was in the US, and then was going to this Mobile 2.0 event in Barcelona on, was it like Thursday? I think it was. It was Thursday, and Friday I was supposed to be in St. Petersburg. So I said that I don't have a visa for Russia, and I know that it can be very difficult to get that. And now we're talking about like very short period of time, and I'm not going to be in Finland. I'm actually traveling the whole week. And then they called me the following day and said that, okay, Peter, that it seems like it's going to be very difficult to get you the visa, by Friday, that there's only a week and you're like traveling all over the place. And I said, yeah, that's what I kind of like thought. And then they told me, but if it isn't too much trouble, we'll send a plane to pick you up in Barcelona. And I said, okay, maybe I can kind of like live with that, like if it doesn't like happen all the time. So then, basically Barcelona, Thursday afternoon, head to the airport, plane picks me up. I'm the only passenger. And then they tell me that, okay, so in order to get you the visa, we actually have to go through Moscow because you're going to get like a crew visa. I said, okay. And then,
as if you were a pilot.
yeah. And then we get to Moscow. Then we get stuck in this massive private jet traffic jam because all the influential Russians are going to St. Petersburg for this St. Petersburg Economic Forum. So then I arrive like late at night, and I have my crew visa, meaning that I walk into the country like the old airport and like some bit different like path into the country. And
there's
then
like
I
a
end up,
queue in the back door, basically. There's
yeah,
a VIP queue in the back door.
yeah. And then I end up in the middle of the street, in the middle of the night, and there's nobody there, and I don't know where to go. And then then luckily there's a bit of a time difference, so I managed to get a hold of the team in London, and then say that okay, I'm now like here, and there's nobody here. There was like supposed to be like a car or something picking me up. And of course, that guy had waited for me where like normal people get into the country. And then, okay, after, like a bit of time, then we managed to connect. And then, I end up at the economic forum, like the next day on a panel with Daniel Ek and Mary Meeker and Yuri Milner and all of these guys. And then we are talking about, I don't remember, maybe the future of the internet or something like super important. And then during our talk, the president, and at that time, so that was when Medvedev was president, they took like turns so that Putin could get re-elected. And then Medvedev walks in, and then he listens to our panel, then he asks for the microphone, and then he says that before we talk politics, I want to thank Rovio for bringing out Angry Birds and giving Russian bureaucrats something to do during their free time and during the working hours. It's okay as well. And he doesn't know how many Angry Birds games there are, but he's sure there's going to be many, many more, and they will be very, very successful. And then after the panel, media comes up to me and then asks me that, hey, that Peter, were you like surprised that the Russian president showed up at your panel? I said, no, I can't like expected that, because we're talking about like very important things like the future of the internet and like all of that. And then they said that, but you must have been surprised that he talked about Angry Birds. I said, actually, not at all, because, look at the panel. You had, 5 or 6 people on the panel, and everybody else, was wearing, more or less serious like business attire. And you have one guy in a red hoodie and red shoes. So what do you think he's going to talk about? And then after that, of course,
catching the eye
in Russia. And it was, anyway, it was a good example of, again, like simple things, like Red Hoodie, standing out. And I think that in marketing, that has always been kind of like my thing, that you need to always think about how your product, your service, how is it different from everything else out there. And that's something that really is kind of like the most important thing, because every market has like an abundance of products and services. So you need to think about like why people should care about what you are doing, and typically they will care if you're different.
It's funny because I realize now that I picked it up from you, but I've been repeating that for the last 10 years to the people I've been working with too. You got to stand out from the crowd, and your difference is all you got. Because if you're just one clone of 1,000 other games, then you put yourself in a rat race, and the best position you can get in that race is number 2. Because you won't be number 1. It's just copy. Yeah, if you're the best of the clones. But you can't be number 1 if you bring nothing different. And I think even in business, in talent, I've been working with a lot of YouTube creators for the last few years. And with these young people as well, I tell them, cultivate your difference. Because at the end of the day, in these 1.4 million YouTube channels, your difference is all you got, really. It's your currency. And manifest but the stand out from the crowd, I realize now, that phrasing, I picked it up from you, and I repeated, I think 1 million times since. and it's a fantastic point. Even the Red Hoodie, it's called peacocking. It's what Lady Gaga does with the meat dress, right? It catches the eye. Yeah, fantastic story, man. And I don't want people to think you're only Angry Birds, though, because after that, now it's been a few years and you've been all over the place. Obviously, the biggest thing that everybody knows you for, where you're catching the eye again, is the tunnel, right? You have the map of the thinnest bay. You came up with the hashtag Heart of Eurasia. Tell us more about that new crazy plan, man.
Yeah. So I mean, that's actually kind of like not like a new thing, because if you look at pretty much everything that I've been doing all my life, of course, always been an entrepreneur. But also, if you look at a lot of the kind of like things, it's always been about building branded communities at scale. And before Rovio created the HP Bazaar, which was like a very early like ecosystem program. Of course, now everybody talks about ecosystems and all of that, but we actually started that in Helsinki, and it was people always then ask that, okay, Peter, so what is this HP Bazaar thing? And then is it like a partner program, a marketing program, a developer program? Like, what is it? And then I always said that it's all of that and more. And again, the brand. Everybody else was creating competence centers, and whatever like centers, and we decided to call our activity the Bazaar, which then always prompted the question that, okay, what is it? And it was actually like all of that, and it was like a physical space at the HP offices. And actually we started in Helsinki, then ended up building that in Singapore, in Tokyo, in Cupertino, actually where now the Apple headquarters, so they took over from HP. But anyway, then just shows how like things changed and nothing is forever. But we built that Bazaar program into then also Beijing, Shanghai, Bangalore, London, Amsterdam, Milan, Toronto, a bunch of places. And it was a way for HP to attract like mobile developers. And then also, if you look at, we started that actually in 1999. And in 2003, when I was running that HP Bazaar activity, I organized this game making competition that Niklas, Kim, and Jarno took part in. And they actually won.
Niklas Head, for the people who listen to us, Niklas Head being one of the co-founders of Rovio.
Yeah, Niklas, the founder of Rovio. Yeah, and Niklas and Kim and Jarno, so they were basically students at Aalto University, and they took part in the game making competition that I organized, and it was about mobile multiplayer. And again, mobile because Nokia had just come out with the first like smartphones, 7650, 3650, with these like I think they had screens with 176 times 208 pixels or something like that.
Was it around the times of the N-Gage as well?
Yeah, N-Gage game actually was part of that same like family, but that was like a few years later. Okay. That came out maybe 2005, 6, something like that. I don't remember the exact, but anyway, 2003 was when some of the first smartphones so had come out 4 years before iPhone hit the market, and then Android came later. But anyway, so that was our program. We did this game making competition, and then that's again like how Rovio got started. That Niklas and the guys won the competition, came to me, what do we do now? Peter, we're students here and we won the competition. And then I said that you should do what you love to do. And, why don't you start a company to make games? So they started Rovio in 2003. So that kind of like came out of this Bazaar activity. And that's also when I first met with Ilkka. So Ilkka Paananen, who started, Supercell later. In 2008, I started Slush together with a few friends. So that's it's now become the biggest and best startup event on the planet. So it's in November in Helsinki every year. But anyway, that's also like, again, about branded community. And so you asked about the tunnel. So what then started working on 5 years ago after leaving Rovio is tunnel to connect Helsinki and Tallinn. So it's a 15 billion euro project to make the two capital cities one metropolitan area. Again, I would kind of like refer to that as boring infrastructure, but because the really interesting thing and why we are doing this is a continuation of what I've been working on pretty much like almost like I would say all my life, is really to kind of like create this higher talent density, bring people together. And if you look at what we achieved with games here in Finland, we have the highest density of studios, game developers, and because of that, Rovio, Supercell, Small Giant, Seriously, and so on and so on, many successful games companies. And it's a little bit like, if you go to LA and then you stop a random person at the local Starbucks and you ask him or her that, okay, why don't you tell me about your movie? And then they will start telling you that, oh, it's, like this. And I've been working on the script for a few years, and I think that Brad Pitt would be like amazing in the lead role. And, so everybody in LA, and Hollywood,
everybody in LA is there for Hollywood. Yes, right.
Exactly.
Even your waiter, even the girl at Starbucks, she's an aspiring actor who works at Starbucks until she's discovered. That's LA.
So, and in Helsinki, you stop, the random person at Starbucks and you ask him or her that, okay, tell me about your game. And then they will start telling you that, it's, it's a match 3 with RPG elements, and, the characters are like this, and, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to monetize by, doing amazing kind of like new things around ads, or I don't know. But anyway, so everybody has like a games idea or wants to be in games. And so the talent density is very important. So what we're doing now with this Finest Bay Area development is that we're creating gravity. We want to attract more talent to the Finest Bay Area, so to the Helsinki Tallinn area, and actually you see Stockholm there, and also behind my back St. Petersburg. So it's like everything around this finest Bay Area. And of course, there are many successful Bay Areas. There's the San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley, you might have heard about that. Seattle Bay Area, Microsoft, Amazon. You have Tokyo Bay Area. In China, you have the Greater Bay Area, the Hong Kong, Macau, Shenzhen, Guangzhou area.
But where I've lived many years. These were my formative years. Yeah, correct. And you don't want to call it silicon anything, right? Because I remember back in the day you were hating on people calling everything silicon. But
I think that I worked a lot in Silicon Valley, and it's a great place, great source of inspiration, but it's already there. So you can only lead by creating something new. You can't lead by following. You can't lead by copying. So the Silicon Valley, fantastic. I met with Bill and Dave when they were still like around. So, Bill Hewlett, Dave Packard, they started HP in their garage in Palo Alto, 1939. But again, that's like long time and before my time. But anyway, I always say that they were fantastic entrepreneurs, because not only did they start HP, they started the whole Silicon Valley. So Silicon Valley wasn't started by Google, Facebook, Twitter, Apple, one of these newcomers, but actually Bill and Dave in their garage. And then, after that, Intel happened and Apple happened. And now, of course, Facebook, Google, Uber, all of these guys, Airbnb, and long list of success stories. And actually, then when you start looking at what is happening here in the Finest Bay Area, look at our friends in Estonia, 1.3 million people. They have created 7 unicorns, and the latest and greatest success story, Wise, formerly known as TransferWise, they just listed in London, and the market cap is over 10 billion. So they became one of the many decacorns here in the Finest Bay Area, Supercell being the first one. And I think that looking at Estonia, 7 unicorns for a population of 1.3 million people. That's like a world record. I was in China, in Beijing, before the pandemic, and I was listening to talk by a professor, I think from Tsinghua University, who was saying that China has 200 unicorns, and super successful. But then if you do the math, China, 1.4 billion people, 200 unicorns, meaning that you need 7 million people to create a unicorn in China, while our friends in Estonia, roughly 200,000 people to create a unicorn. So the Finest Bay Area is actually the most successful area when it comes to unicorn creation, and startup activity anywhere on the planet. So more successful than Silicon Valley or China, if you measure this per capita. And I think that that's, again, why we're building the tunnel. It's just to create even more of that, and basically creating one unified metropolitan area out of the Helsinki, Tallinn, capital cities with 2 million, then soon to be 3 million people. And then you mentioned that I talk about also this, heart of Eurasia. So we're right here in the middle of the action. We have Europe on one side, China, Japan, India right next door. So we're the closest neighbor of Asia. here in Europe. So in normal like non-pandemic times, like get on a plane in Helsinki, and 7 hours later I'm in Beijing, 8 hours later I'm in Shanghai, and 9 hours Tokyo, 6 hours Delhi. So very, very close proximity to most of the Asian capitals, which makes it kind of like a very good place to be if you want to do business in all of Europe, all of Asia. That's where like 5 billion people, 70% of the world's population lives. So it's kind of like a massive opportunity from that perspective as well.
Yeah, and obviously what I said about the Silicon Valley, we love the Silicon Valley,
of course,
but it's going back to what you say, stand out from the crowd. Don't try to copy it. Don't try to be the Silicon Valley of this place on the map. And that's why you call Slush, because there's slush on the ground. It's not sunny. It's not LA. Let's do it in November while it's cold, and it's Finland. You have this clear-spirited view of brands. And I really like what you said. I would agree with you that in the last 10 years, Helsinki, Tallinn has become the vibrant, new, growing tech ecosystem of our generation. I used to joke a few years ago, Helsinki is the new Tokyo. And obviously, the culture is completely different of Japan, and in architecturally, visually, it's completely different. But what I meant by that is that I was seeing all my friends migrate to Helsinki to work in video games, where the decades before they were migrating to Tokyo, because this is where the innovations in gaming was. And actually, Helsinki right now reminds me a bit of Brussels in the 60s, when after Tintin and Smurfs, everybody in Brussels started to have their comic books, and came a generation of Asterix, all that from a tiny country, and IPs and brands that are still alive today. And I think in Helsinki the same happened. First Nokia with the first mobile game, Snake, and then the competitions that you run, and it was not enough maybe to be very successful, but it was enough to pay people and run companies. And then Rovio, Supercell, and then the ex-Rovio and the ex-Supercell will go out and start their own companies. And now that's it. If you want to have neighbors who know what they're talking about, you go to Helsinki in video games, whether you finish or not. They come from all over the world now, right?
And actually, and we're now, on that note also, what we're like working a lot on kind of like then enabling the next generation. And exactly you said, I mean, a lot of former Rovio and Supercell and a lot of people who basically grew up in various companies, they're now starting their own, and that's why there's a very healthy kind of like ecosystem with lots of kind of like small studios, slightly bigger studios, and it's not just then kind of like the game studios, but it's the whole ecosystem around supporting, like if you want to know about
the capital,
advertising, or the analytics, or now a lot of work around AI and games, and like all of that. So it's a very, very healthy ecosystem. And also one thing that we're doing now.
Also the capital ecosystem. Finnish studios get funded very easy. There is Tekas as an instrument from the government. You have quite a few VCs like Play VC. Shout outs to Henry, to Ari and Henry. But there are a few. I'm just shouting my favorite. But and that's a big advantage, by the way, compared to other countries. I can tell you that other European countries, it can be sometimes much harder and tedious to get funded.
Yeah, but I think that it's of course it's not easy to get funding like anywhere, and that's kind of like a little bit like the way it's supposed to be as well. So not all ideas, not all games deserve to get funded, but I think that you're absolutely right that there's a lot of funding for games, and actually, if you look at Finland, we're been pretty successful in attracting capital. So last year we had the highest amount of VC capital invested per capita anywhere in Europe. Of course, Europe is a very low bar, so I mean it's like it's a good start. And of course, we want to have like the highest amount of VC capital invested per capita, like globally. But I think also if you look at, take again Tallinn and Estonia, last 3 years, more than 500 startup founders have moved to Tallinn. Slightly less here to Finland, but we're working on that to attract like 1,000 startup founders every year moving to Finland. And Estonia is now working on doing a 10x in the number of startups, investments, founders, everything. And I think that is very exciting, and there's a lot of activity, and that is kind of like the gravity that I always talk about, that we have that gravity, and a lot of people are coming here. And during the pandemic, we've seen even more of that because we managed to cope with it like reasonably well, at least so far. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity also like outside of games. I mean, there's amazing startups in AI. So we have a long, history in AI here in Finland. We invented the self-propagating neural networks in the 1970s, self-organizing neural networks a bit later. So we have like several generations of like AI development behind us, and there's like super amazing things being built in that area. And I think that it's a great place to be if you want to start a company, and that's actually what we are working on right now, is to make it very easy for startup founders and for talent to come here to the finest Bay Area, and then start your own company or join one of the many fantastic startups that we already have. So the idea is really that success will lead to more success, and what we're really trying to do is now in many of the projects I'm working on, it's really about enabling the success of others. And I think that this is important, that we need to enable the next generation of founders, provide them with all the support needed so they can build the next unicorn, decacorn, and much bigger success stories than we've seen so far. And that's kind of like how the world works, and again, why we're talking about the finest Bay Area, because we're kind of like only getting started here, and I think that there's many opportunities to work on right now.
Talking of Estonia, if I'm not wrong, they're the first one who introduced the e-residency, right?
Yeah.
I remember a conversation in Slush in 2015 with one of their representatives, and they were talking to me about that, and they were telling me by 2020, which passed, there's going to be 1 billion digital nomads. To which I joked, "Oh, you're talking to the first. I'm a digital nomad since 2003." But the jokes aside, we are now in that world that they were talking about at 2015. And pandemic somehow reduced traveling, but it accelerated digital transformation and work from home and remote team and distributed forces. And that, I think, is the next big step and an advantage for the finest Bay Area, is that you're completely digital, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you look at like Estonia, I mean, they have done fantastic work in digitalizing most of the government processes, and we've done pretty well on the Finnish side in some areas. I mean, our tax system, surprisingly enough, works like very well, and it's super fast to file your taxes here. Then we can always discuss about the right level of taxation, but that's kind of like another discussion. But anyway, I think that for the most part, the society is pretty functioning, and a lot of areas, of course, where we could have even less bureaucracy, but for the most part, things work reasonably well. So that's kind of like a good start. But right now, working on making it much easier for students, to come here for university. We just started this Finest Future high school program, so we're helping high school students come to Finland, Estonia to do their high school in one of our many, fantastic high schools, and then you can continue into university, working life, and big focus on helping startup founders come here and set up kind of like the next big thing. So that is something that we're very, very focused on, and making that, you know, like a super smooth process. And I think that that is, of course, there's, you know, like good competition out there, but I think the e-residency that our Estonian friends have been doing now for many years, that's been a very, very good kind of like example of how things can and should be done. So you can, you know, start a company without even visiting the country, and I think that this is pretty good.
Yeah, especially in the pandemic.
Yeah, especially in the pandemic. Yeah, exactly.
One thing, you know, as you know, at Big Karma, we make that video game with disabled athletes and trying to shift
Yes.
perspective around that. And one of our motto is that we are all flawed, we are all imperfect, we all faced setbacks and difficulties, and it's about how we come out of it. And so with that in mind, we've talked about success, which is done usually in media. Can you tell us, so that people at home can, you know, how liberating it can be for the others when somebody as successful as you shares maybe a failure story that has helped build the Peter that you have today? What would be your best failure story? Something you failed, but somehow you don't regret that you did.
Yeah, I think that the way I always like to answer this, because I mean it's kind of like get that question. I guess that's like one of the standard questions in many interviews. But I think that the way I look at that, first of all, I mean if you don't fail, you're not trying hard enough. So I think that's kind of like the most important thing, and you need to create an environment where people are not afraid of failing. Meaning that they're not afraid of trying new things. And I always say that, you know, it's kind of like normal that if you try new things, more often than not, you will fail because you don't know how to do it. You know, like you don't know how to walk on water. So you might pick, you know, like trying to do that in the summer when, you know, winter is the right time, or, you know, like whatever. But anyway, so you need to really create an environment where people are not afraid of trying new things, and meaning that, you know, they will fail a lot as well. But actually, another way of looking at that is that, okay, they will learn a lot because, you know, the best way to learn is to do. So I'm a big believer in learning by doing. And then if you look at like biggest failures and all of that, I think also, you know, it's important that it's not that you want to fail. So, I mean, that is kind of like the thing there. So it's all about learning from your mistakes, from your failures. And for me, I always say that, you know, like I fail every day, like many times. And that's, you know, like if I wouldn't be doing the right thing, you know, but then it's also important that you know, okay, you analyze, you learn, and you move on. So I think that it's very important that you then kind of like put that behind you, you take the learnings, and then you forget about it. Because I think that it's very,
Don't
very
let it be a burden.
Yeah, and you start kind of like, then if you get into this mode that, you know, yeah, you know, I failed, you know, with this, and then, you know, I'm gonna fail again, and you kind of like, you start kind of like focusing too much on this, you know, the failure.
Feeling like a loser. You might start feeling like a loser, and you shouldn't. It's just training. Thinking, it's just practice.
Yes. So I think that that's why I, you know, like could mention, you know, many like failures, but I don't really think that it's kind of like very productive. So for my perspective, I think that it's much more important that you kind of like foster this attitude of everything being possible, not impossible. And my kind of like experience is that there are very, very few things out there that actually are impossible. And then it's really important. And I think that also what we did at Rovio and in many of the things that I've been involved with is that you start with something that people think is impossible, but then you figure it out, be it, you know, 100 million or, you know, walking on water, building a tunnel, you know, whatever it might be, that you're not afraid of going out there. And then, you know, yes, you might fail, but, you know, like, as long as nobody dies, you know, like, what's the big deal? So yeah, I think that, you know, it's really, really important to kind like have that kind of attitude. So I always talk about attitude and ambition, that you should have that kind of attitude and approach, and then also that you're not afraid of being ambitious, and even crazy ambitious, because again, why limit your own like potential and your own like upside? I mean, there's no reason to do that, and other people will do that for you anyway. So I think
that's right.
Yeah.
And as they say, if you aim for the moon, if you fail, you might land in the stars.
Yeah.
So
which is like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I really admire the way you reinvented yourself after 5 years of wearing that red hoodie and being identified. You were like Rovio incarnate for a time. Even people were taking selfie with you. You were the mighty eagle. You were like you had a superhero character. You had a costume that you put on, and then you were the mighty eagle. For the first few weeks after Rovio, before reinventing yourself, so before all that you've done after, was it hard for a moment? Did you miss it? Did Peter for once experience fear?
No, not really. I don't like really feel like I've kind of like reinvented myself or anything. I think that I'm kind of like been doing like pretty much the same thing, before, during, after. If you look at like Rovio, and the same you could say about when I was like at HP or like doing Slush or any of these kind of like activities. So I think that for me it's kind of like all the same. And of course, like then looking at it kind of like from outside and all that, okay, it might look different, but I think that I haven't really kind of like changed too much, and not that I could kind of like recognize that myself. So because I don't think that it's actually if you look at it, like again, and I said earlier that it's all about like building these branded communities. And I think that that's been always something that I've been very kind of like keen on, and I enjoyed working with other people, and I think that is something that there's kind of like no change there, and then also, I mean, you kind of like then you kind of like learn from experience that, okay, maybe you're not like successful making things happen today, or maybe not even tomorrow, and sometimes it might take 10 years. But I mean, you just have to believe that, okay, you keep at it, and then like you'll get there, and you need to know kind of like where you want to go, and I think that that's also kind of like a leadership kind of thing, that you have to basically be able to share with other people then that where you want to go kind of like long term, and maybe it's like 100 million downloads. I thought that was like pretty ambitious, and I thought it would take longer than the months that it took. But
again, people thought you were crazy and laughed.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was like ambitious, and it would take a while, but it you never know, and it's impossible to predict these kind of things. But then I think that then where you want to go, and then you can like think about that like every day, what you need to do today, tomorrow, this week, this month, this year, to get there, and that's kind of like how it works. And yeah, for me, it's not really like about, I don't know, reinventing myself or anything like that. I mean, I'm
it's continuing.
I think I know what I'm doing, so that's always like a dangerous thing to say. But I have an idea where I want to go and what I want to get done. So then it's just about like making it so.
You're right, and I like that message, because it's a very important message for all entrepreneurs out there. It's about resilience. A lot of things we've discussed at the beginning, especially the agribot stories, sound like it's all fast, but let's not forget that between the first Bazaar where you met Nicholas Head And Angry Birds, there have been 51 games, and Angry Birds was game number 52. Actually, back then you used to say a lot, Angry Birds is an overnight success that took 5 years to make, or something like that. I don't remember the years.
Yeah, I mean, like from the start of Rovio, 6 years, 51 games. But also what's always important there, that it's not like those games were like all like failures or something like that.
No.
The market was very different. And I mean, for example, the Bounce games that Rovio did were pre-installed on like, I think, 260 million Nokia devices. But I mean, that doesn't, mean anything if you get, like a few tens of K to create like those games. And like, so it's also about the iPhone happening, the App Store happening, the dynamics of the market. And again, the thing about, like too early, too late. So, if you look at it now, 2003, maybe not the right time to start making games for mobile, but then, a bit earlier, like a few years before, Sumea, which became Digital Chocolate, and then Ilkka started Supercell, got started then. King, makers of Candy Crush, they got started in 2003. So many of the companies that then became very successful, they were not overnight success stories. And this is again, like learning by doing. You make games, you learn how to make games, how to market games. And I think that this is something also that people should keep in mind, that again, it's not failure, it's learning. And I think that it's very important to go out there, do things, learn. And what I always say is that don't think, do think. And what I mean by that is that we shouldn't like overanalyze and like just think about doing, but we should actually do. And then we learn, and then we can like think about it again and like make it better and all that. But it's a little bit like everybody understands that probably you can learn how to drive a car by reading a bunch of books, but most likely a much better way to learn how to drive the car is to actually drive it. And I think that this applies for many things in life, many things in business, that you can read like hundreds of books, but then you go out there, you start a company, and that's when you can like really learn. Of course, you should still read the books as well, but that's not enough.
We're not telling people not to read, but you have to practice. I tell my 16-year-old daughter the same thing. If you're not going to learn football by studying the physics of the ball, you have to kick the ball 1,000 times, miss the goal 999 times because too short, too long, too strong, not strong enough. And obviously reading the books about physics is great, but at some point kick the ball and take a risk. And you're absolutely, the too early, too late.
Yeah,
I understand it from an investor mentality. You want to put your money in at the right time so that it fructifies, because that's your job. As an investor, you have fiduciary duties, shareholders. Yeah. However, as an entrepreneur or a marketeer, I love being too early, my friend, because out of experience and because I'm resilient and patient, I know that it's going to give me time to develop my tools and my service and the quality of my products. Like you said about King, about Rovio, one could have said, oh, they are too early. No, they're making, by the time the market was ready, by the time luck came across, luck is when opportunity meets preparation. They were better prepared than the rest of us. And so when luck came across, they just had to flip a switch. So too early is not that bad for an entrepreneur, only for an investor.
Very true.
All right, Peter, that was really great to have you with us. I know you have to run now, but I'm sure we'll talk again, and you're going to be one of our regular on the show. You're going to be our Bill Murray to Dave Letterman, the man who comes the most often. You have so many stories about so many things. So thank you for your time today.
Hey, thank you.
For our viewers, you can check the Patreon program of Big Karma. For people who listen at home, that's patreon.com/Big Karma. Thank you so much for your time and for your crazy stories, Peter. I love you like a brother, and I wish you all the success and learning you can get in your next endeavors.
All the best to you too, and like good and big karma. So yeah.